Paul, let's head down to the feature match area right now. Hello and welcome to coverage of Grand Prix Denver. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Reed Duke. And we got a nice one here, Reed. Two 7-0 players and really good players on top of it, Steve Rubin and Paul Cheon. Paul with white-blue flash playing against Teamer Etherworks. You got a chance to really kind of get into the nitty-gritty of Steve Rubin's approach and his deck list when you did a deck tech with him earlier.
Right, yeah, we recorded earlier today, and hopefully there will be a chance for everyone at home to check that out sooner rather than later.
See how things
on
go
the other side of the table
here.
Paul Cheon, everything that we had said and praised about Antonio Del Moral Leon, the 9-0 player from Grand Prix Madrid, is also true about Paul Cheon. Both players really hardworking and successful Magic Online grinders. Paul Cheon, one of the most popular streamers in America, and predictably both have shown up with a similar take on the format, which is just a really nice, well-tuned version of White Blue Flash.
We were talking earlier, Reed, about the red-green Delirium matchup with Teamer Etherworks and how the Etherworks deck tends to be favored. It kind of wants to play against that deck, but is that true of the White-Blue Flash matchup as well?
White-Blue Flash is the natural predator of Etherworks Marvel.
Oh, no.
Because this deck is so centered around the one card that happens to cost 4 mana, and the White-Blue Flash deck can counter it with Spell Queller or its variety of other counter spells between the main deck and the sideboard. Plus, it just puts on a really fast clock.
Yeah. Well, things are going to get really interesting here because Rubin had really the best start he could. He has the turn 3 Etherworks Marvel. He's at 4 energy in his pool right now. So he's still going to need to find another couple of energy if he's going to do it, but he's got so many cards in his deck to let him spin that wheel.
Yeah, this game is going exactly the way Steve needs it to go, which is that he stuck a Marvel in underneath the permission and now can use basically the whole rest of his deck to set up being able to activate it and hopefully hit an Emrakul. Since it's game 1, also, there's a lot less risk of Paul having something like Fragmentize to be able to take the Marvel off the battlefield.
Does he have those in the main?
No, none in the main. I think only in the sideboard.
Gotcha. Well, Paul's doing his darndest here to try to keep up. Ooh. Oh, and this is pretty brutal for him. He Spell Quellers away a Whirler Virtuoso, which does threaten to, put up a token to block the spirit, that kind of thing. But Steve wasn't finished yet. He's got a Harness Lightning. Interestingly, Steve has a funny decision. He could kill the Spell Queller and get back his Virtuoso, or he could just bank the energy and use his Etherworks Marvel. You can choose 0, right?
Yeah, and Paul's put to a tough position because if he sacrifices the Selfless Spirit, that's exactly what Steve is going to do, is just bank the energy, activate the Marvel, no problem.
And here we go. Let's see what he hits. This could decide the game if he hit something huge, but I do not believe that he did. Now, he can hit any spell and cast it for free. So, he's got a Chandra in there. He's got another Harness Lightning. It's not like he whiffed, but he didn't hit a big Eldrazi.
Yeah, whenever you see the Marvel player not just slam something right away, you know things are going to get interesting.
And this is funny. I heard Gabby in the last round say that hitting a Woodweaver's Puzzle Knot off of Marvel is the same thing as buying one of those scratch tickets. It just says you get another scratch ticket.
That's perfect. Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
It is. Unfortunately, he does still have to go to the store and purchase the scratch ticket, which is going to cost him another 3 mana. So he is going to take a hit here. But he, for all intents and purposes, is going to be able to run the Etherworks Marvel back again, and that's why he ended up choosing that.
So Paul's got to be thinking, how can I close the game fast enough to give Rubin the smallest number of Marvel activations possible, but also mitigate the damage of the possible cards that Steve could hit off of activating the Marvel? That's a very fine and challenging line to walk.
I mean, this does seem like about the fastest possible. He's going to play a Gideon, make a token, activate. That gets him in for 5 this turn, which is the most he was going to get in for this turn under any normal circumstance. And he gets to have a Gideon that threatens to slam in there for a bunch of damage next turn in conjunction with his other creatures. It's scary to face down this Marvel deck. I think that Paul knows he's going to need to get kind of lucky here and have Steve miss again in a meaningful way.
You're right. This is about as good as Paul can hope for. He's doing his best, but a lot of this game is going to come down to what Steve is able to hit off of this Marvel activation.
All right, well, he's going to go cash in that scratch ticket here.
You'll notice he picked up 4 energy there, 3 from the ability of the Puzzle Knot, 1 from the ability of the Marvel when a permanent goes to the graveyard.
Right. Let's see what he hits.
Oh, God, it's not a great hit.
He did not hit big time again. He hit 2 copies of Marvel. And certainly no big Eldrazi in there. Wow.
So he's close to having, as you said, another scratch ticket here. He's going to Legend Rule his own Marvel, which is going to trigger 2 extra energies from the Marvel dying. And we see that he has another Woodweaver's Puzzle Knot in hand, and he has the land to make it up to 6. So 1 more shot.
And the thing to remember here, of course, you and I talked about this earlier in the day, Reed, is that Woodweaver's Puzzle Knot is also gaining him life. He's at 18.
Yep.
He has to hit here, right?
Yeah, it gets like the odds start going in your favor quite quickly when you've activated the Marvel this many times, because you're not reshuffling your library.
Man, I mean, again, it's not like he's whiffing, right? Like that's basically impossible, but he still hasn't hit the big game-ending spell that he's hoping to hit.
Right, Steve has 4 giant Eldrazi's in his deck, and it looks like none of them have been in his top 30 or so cards.
Insane. So he's going to have to settle for a Chandra. And let's see if he can work his way through. It still feels like, of course, top card is an Emrakul. What else could it be? Every card in his deck is an Emrakul at this point.
That's really funny. So he had the option, if he wanted to kill the Spell Queller and free up his Whirler Virtuoso, but he decided to use his creature and combination with the Chandra to take out Gideon, which I think is wise, taking the most potential damage off the table, buying himself the most possible time.
Right. Ruben's down to 0 energy now, though, so he will have to dedicate a few things to it. He's got 1 energy from his Chandra dying. He can get another 4 from the Puzzle Knot, but he will need to find another single energy source from somewhere if he's going to activate that Aetherworks Marvel again. Which would be, what, his 4th?
It would be his 4th activation, yes.
What in the world is going on here? But like I said, things don't look too bad for him. His life total's still high. He still has an Aetherworks Marvel on the battlefield. Xion has his mana now, though.
Yeah, he has his mana open, which could signal a counterspell, a Spell Queller, or an Archangel Avacyn.
Wow, but Paul just allows Ishkanah to resolve.
Yeah, so we can't see his full graveyard on screen, but I do remember that there's an Attune with Ether in the graveyard to give him Delirium.
Okay, well, Paul had an answer for Ishkanah herself, but the 3 spiders, of course, remain. And those are a big pain for Paul. Like,
definitely.
Yeah, I mean, Smuggler's Copter doesn't look good against those 3 little reach spiders.
When you're in a hysterical panic to get your opponent dead as quickly as possible, 3 annoying blockers is a big deal.
Yeah, for sure.
And the silver lining, from Steve's perspective, is that even chump blocking with spiders gives him more energy from the Marvel.
Yeah, the 1/2 with reach is such a... They stack so well. I mean, like, just think of it. If he triple blocks the Copter, trades it for
or the Spell
spider. Yeah, or the... It's just... Doesn't seem right. They're supposed to be little tiny spiders, but they do a great job. But Paul's going to continue to jam. He's going to attack with both of his flyers. Loot away an island. Okay. Spell Queller's going to get triple blocked.
Steve would love to free up Whirler Virtuoso.
Yeah.
It would even come with the possibility of activating the Marvel again this turn, but looks like it's not to be.
This allows the Spell Queller to survive, but does net Steve Rubin an energy. And Paul Cheon gets in for 3. So he's doing his best, like you said, but Steve just drew a Servant of the Conduit, so he will have enough mana, or excuse me, enough energy here to use his Aetherworks Marvel, and he just has to hit now. Come on.
So actually, both Emrakul's are gone from his deck. He has one in his hand, one in exile, but there's still 2 Ulamog to Ceaseless Hunger. Ooh, and there's
and
one.
he hit one. All right. And like you said, when they hit it, they throw it down on the table, and he certainly did this time. And, of course, the key interaction here being the Aetherworks Marvel allows you to cast the creature, not simply put it into play. And now this one's over.
Freeing up 2 devastating creatures. That's it.
Forget it. I mean, Paul dodged fate enough. But, again, I want to stress the fact that look at the life totals. Like, even through all of that, through the good fortune that Paul had for Steve not to hit huge game-ending spells, Steve Rubin comfortably won that game at 18 life.
Yeah, very impressive.
Woodweaver's Puzzle Knot, man. That's a real deal. Oh, look at this. We've got Owen Turtenwald versus Eric Froelich down there as well. And then down on the end, I see Alex Hain, and that's Max Mick actually closest to us. He's my nemesis online.
Is that so?
Yeah, him and I both draft late at night. We're in the same time zone. And we always end up playing against him.
And he's a tough opponent. He gets you.
Three
he gets you
murders.
Oh.
I was like, Max, come on, man. Like, let's be realistic here. He just said, people kept passing me murders. No, he's a good player. He's also got a GP top 8, you'll remember, earlier in the year.
From Portland earlier in the season. Yep.
That's right. No, he's I got my eye on Max. He's a really good player. He puts in the work. He'll travel out to the GPs. He knows what he's doing.
And he's quite young, too.
Yes. Told him he looked like a little Tom Martell with his glasses, and he kind of has similar mannerisms too. Wouldn't be bad to be young Tom Martell, would it?
No, not at all.
Tom's, of course, a PT champ.
Yep. And Max's opponent's no slouch either, Alexander Hain.
God, yes.
One of the top-ranked players, one of the most consistent players in Magic.
Yeah.
He was the Grand Prix Master 2 years ago, meaning the player who had performed best over the course of the year in Grand Prix tournaments. And last season, he had what I guess you would call an extremely quiet season without a lot of top 8 finishes. But he was, if you read between the lines, he was in the top 16, top 32 of basically every tournament he attended and finished just one slot outside making the World Championships.
He's also a great personality. He's super funny. And also, I know a lot of players that would really let that get them down. Like, oh, I finished pretty well again, but man, I just can't seem to make a top 8. And, that guy has 4 GP wins. He's got a Pro Tour win. Like, he's used to winning, He actually won the first PT I did PT commentary at, too, the one I was talking about earlier.
Right, you mentioned that.
Yeah.
Very cool.
He was the one. Remember he played that Miracles deck?
Yeah, that was
That deck was crazy.
that was a memorable tournament.
Yeah. Pro Tour Avacyn Restored. That was also one of the very first, let me think, I can't remember. It was either the first or second tournament that we started calling the Pro Tours by their set name.
Okay.
Rather than just by the location. Which I think was kind of a clever and cool change that they made. Okay, so Steve Rubin scratched enough tickets there to get himself to 1-0 against Cheon, but that's going to put Paul in the play with Blue-Eye Flash in presumably a pretty good matchup, and now Rubin's on the mulligan as well. So the scale's starting to tip towards Paul Cheon, it seems.
Yeah, I didn't get a great look at Steve's hand there, but that looked to me like a very disciplined mulligan. He had lands and an Aetherworks Marvel in his hand.
Huh. Usually when I see people do that, they're often looking for something more specific.
And this is game 2, so they know the matchup, and maybe he's got a particular plan in mind for the matchup.
Oh, God, this is a sweet matchup, by the way. Eric Froelich versus Owen Turtenwald.
Clash of the Titans.
Really, just two of the game's best going at it here. These are like two of the two best technical players in the game.
Mm-hmm.
You got to love that.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, well, I think our first match is now underway, so we'll pop back over. If we have time, we'll come and check in on this match. I am sad to leave it, but we've got a little storyline going here between these two. And once again, a perfect start for Ruben. In fact, he's even used up his mana on the first two turns after mulliganing it. Can he hit a Aetherworks Marvel on turn 3 again, or more importantly, would he even try had he had the option? Looks like he's got it in his hand. Was that it at the bottom there? Yeah.
Yeah, this is a very good mulligan for Steve. Very good
Is
mulligan
it possible that he's missing a land?
Yeah, so he might have to slow himself down, take a turn off to use the vessel if he doesn't draw a land.
I hope he draws it, because I want to know if he just plays it or not. Like, if Paul says go. All right, well, now that changes everything. All right, now I want to see if he hits his land. No, he drew Ishkana. So now he's going to have to use the vessel to go find a land. Ooh,
almost bricked, but
that was close. But he hit
Ether
it.
Hub is just what the doctor ordered.
Yeah, not bad at all. Lots of incidental energy out of this deck as well. Not just Woodweaver's puzzle knots that are there, just to get you energy, but also Servant of the Conduit. You see here the Ether Hubs. He's got 4 energy. He even just used one of them.
Yeah, he's doing fine.
Mm-hmm. Cheon, though, warming up the chopper here.
Yeah, although this is a bit of a tricky situation for the blue-white flash player, because it's really, really important to play a creature in your pre-combat main phase that you can attack with the copter, but that means not holding up mana for Spellqueller.
Okay, well, he's going to have to settle for Reflector Mage, putting one of the servants back in hand for Ruben, but now that the shields are down for Paul Cheon, Steve Ruben has the green light to just cast an Aetherworks Marvel. The question is, does he do it? It's interesting because, Paul could easily snap it off with a card like Fragmentize, and Steve does not have the requisite energy at the moment.
Right, it is a post-sideboard game, so that's a big part of the equation here.
Yeah, but it makes sense to me that he's doing this, though, right? You got to take the chance to resolve it while the shields are down and force Paul to have one of the much more less common in his deck sideboard cards rather than, a Spellqueller, which he's happily main decking as many of as he can get his hands on.
I think so, too.
Yeah. But I think if I'm Ruben, I'm not shocked if this Marvel doesn't survive the turn here. But if it does, he's in full business mode because we know that Steve has another servant in his hand. Paul bounced it last turn with the Reflector Mage, and that'll get him the 2 energy he needs. And that could be a game winner. Wow, Paul's passed the turn.
So he may be hoping to counter whatever Steve produces to try to get the last 2 energy.
It's a tall order.
Yeah, remember 2 turns ago, a Servant of Conduit was Reflector Mage.
Right, so he knows about that one. He may counter this one, but even if he does, Steve Ruben has another copy of it in his hand. Oh, no, he doesn't have it at all. Paul Cheon just doesn't have a great draw here, looks like, defensively speaking.
Mm-hmm.
And now Steve Ruben is sitting pretty with an Aetherworks Marvel and 6 energy. Here we go.
Here we go.
Whoop, that was an Emrakul. Ding.
Wow, is that going to be it?
That's probably it. I mean, this is going to absolutely savage Paul Cheon's board. Paul's likely going to lose the Smuggler's Copter as well as the Selfless Spirit. He may even lose the Reflector Mage if Steve Ruben decides to trade a creature off for it. And it's kind of game, right?
Yeah, it's going to be a tough climb for Paul. I mean, he's got to answer the Emrakul and somehow dismantle the Aetherworks Marvel, all while Steve Ruben's controlling his next turn.
Okay, well, there's a glimmer of hope here. A Stasis Snare on end step is going to take care of big Emrakul. Mm-hmm. But it still feels like havoc can be wrought here from Steve's perspective.
Ooh, so fortunate to not have drawn an untapped land there, because if it was a sixth untapped land, Steve could cast Paul's Gideon and negate it.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
As it is, I don't think Steve really has that much that he can harm Paul with. I mean, he could attack with the Smuggler's Copter and see what he loots into, but the Copter, there's nothing to block it. The Emrakul's gone.
Right. I have seen some players play the Gideon and just make an emblem with it.
Sure, that's an option.
But I don't know if that's even good here. I don't know how important the Reflector Mage is to Steve Rubin. He could trade it for one of his servants if he desired.
Yeah, so he could trade off the Reflector Mage and emblem the Gideon, and then hope that Paul does not draw another creature to crew the Copter.
That does take care of everything that he can see at the moment. But man, if he does draw a creature, crew up the Copter, hit you for 4, 3-turn clock, and right now Rubin does need to take some time to build up a little bit more energy. I mean, it could just be one turn, but
I'm curious if he'll play the Port Town. On the one hand, you don't want to give Paul extra mana for next turn. On the other hand, you don't want him to have a free card that he could loot away if he does draw a creature.
Good point. He decided
pretty
not
interesting,
to.
subtle play there.
Yeah, that is. The other piece of the puzzle here, though, Reed, is that Steve has been sitting on an Ishkanah for a few turns, and he can cast it now.
Yeah, and poor Paul only has negate, which can't answer it.
And he also drew a Plains for his draw step on his extra turn, so yeah, this isn't looking great for Paul Cheon fans out there. Steve Rubin, the Destroyer, just running in here at 7-0 and up a game. And
against what's supposed to be his worst matchup.
Right. It didn't seem to slow him down much. Looks like Rubin's going to play a Tireless Tracker here, maybe? Well, he's going to attack first. Tracker, go. Pretty unexciting. Maybe he doesn't have Delirium yet? Is that possible?
That is possible, yes.
It would certainly make casting Ishkanah less attractive. Well, hey, there's the Fragmentize. You know, honestly, it felt a little late, but at the same time, like, Rubin's board isn't so impressive that Paul just could never come back here, right?
Right. Although that is the fourth type for Delirium.
You're right. All right. Well, now Rubin's board looks so impressive, I don't think Paul could come back. That changed quickly. All right. Well, Ishkanah doing her thing now. And Cheon is in a world of pain here. This is just a super tough spot for him, especially because that Tireless Tracker will start churning upwards. And you know how that goes. They play a land, they crack a clue, and then they don't miss a land drop for the rest of the game.
Right. Note that Steve didn't even attack last turn. He was like, you know, I have so many ways to win this game other than attacking for damage. Why would I risk attacking into an Archangel Avacyn or anything like that?
Oh, no, a second copy of Tireless Tracker? Now, Cheon, he doesn't have sweepers out of the board or something like that, right? Like, that's not a consideration from Rubin's perspective.
Anything is possible, and you know that a player of Steve's caliber is going to be thinking about these possibilities, but all things equal, I don't think he has a strong reason to play around a card like that.
Yeah.
It would be very surprising if Paul brought that in.
Yeah, I haven't seen those in the blue-white sideboards much.
That's it. Steve Rubin wins the match.
Yeah, that is going to do it. Steve Rubin just running over Paul Cheon there. Again, it's supposed to be his worst matchup, and Paul has to kind of let this soak in a little bit. He's going to have to regroup and come back for his last game to try to finish X and